This is an extract from the Leader podcast by the Evening Standard, hosted by me, David Marsland. To hear the whole thing, search for us on your podcast provider. Any teacher will tell you if you don't prepare before your exams, they won't go very well. The government knew it would be tested with the A-level results. It had weeks to prepare after a similar shambles in Scotland. It was clear there would be issues when schools closed months ago. And yet, the same problems have appeared. First, students trying to log in to get their results had to wait because the system couldn't handle the demand. Then, in the year coronavirus meant there were no exams, so teachers sent their recommended grades, it was revealed nearly 40% of results had been lowered. And if you want to appeal based on your mock tests, you can't just now, because the procedure to do it hasn't been set up yet. The exam regulator Ofqual cancelled a press conference this morning, leaving Education Secretary Gavin Williamson alone to explain it all in the media rounds. This is him on LBC.
There are going to be youngsters at the end of this process who will get their grade, and quite simply that grade is the wrong grade. And we need to ensure that there's as robust and as fair a system for those young people to get the grade that they want.
Our editorial column expects improvement.
Somehow, the government has managed to replace a blunt instrument with one that is barely workable. Its new A-level grading plan, formulated at the 11th hour, is already in chaos.
I was getting A stars in coursework, I was getting A stars in classwork, and I was really expecting an A star in my English.
I received A stars throughout the year, so I'm just a bit baffled as to why I got an A and didn't receive the A star. I can't go to the university that I want to go to do the course that I'd like to do.
Ministers must work fast to sort out the mess, but they face even bigger tests. They must find a remedy to the problem that their new plan still risks putting poorer students at a disadvantage. These pupils now face 3 potential hurdles. The first is that the government's standardisation formula takes schools' past performance into account, which could mean richer pupils get a boost. The second is having to navigate the appeals process, which favours those with sharp-elbowed middle-class parents. The third is that many state schools have offered far less in the way of teaching than private ones. The latter problem at least has a clear answer. Schools must open as soon as possible.
The Evening Standard's education editor Anna Davis is with me. Anna, you've been talking to teachers this morning. What do they make of all this?
Well, I think they are exasperated and shocked. Some of the teachers I spoke to in the past few days were already upset by the government's sort of last-minute change in the way that marks were going to be graded, so allowing students to use their mock exam marks to appeal against their results today. So I think the teachers were already slightly unsettled by this last-minute change. And some of the teachers we've spoken to today are surprised by some of the results that their students have got, to put it mildly. They say that they assessed the students and said what they thought they should have got, and some of those marks have been moderated and changed quite dramatically, some of them by 2 grades or even 3 in some cases, and they are just trying to work out how this has happened.
Is there any explanation for what's happened, Anna?
Well, so obviously it's all started because no students could take their exams because of the coronavirus, and they had to come up with a way of giving them a mark so they could carry on with their lives and get into university or jobs or further study. So teachers were asked to grade their students and give them what they thought they would have got in an exam, and then they put them in rank order, and then Ofqual moderated those teacher assessments using an algorithm. And it's this algorithm which has come in for criticism because it does take into account a school's past performance. So some schools that have done not so well in the past, if they've got very, very bright pupils this year, then they might be marked down because they're at a poorer school. Ofqual insists that it's fair, but today's results are showing individual instances of students who seem to have been marked down when they were expected to do much better. But overall, the overall pass rate and the top grades has actually gone up by more than 2%, but it's these individual cases of students being downgraded that are really upsetting people.
Now, this week, students were told that there was this triple lock system going into place, and part of that was they would be able to appeal using their mock results. But this morning, it's turned out it's not quite as straightforward as that.
No, originally it was sort of billed as if you do better in your mocks, then you can just choose to use your mock result. But you actually have to ask your school to appeal on your behalf, and that mock has to have been taken under exam conditions. It has to sort of meet certain criteria, and actually that criteria hasn't even been decided yet, because the exam boards and Ofqual are sort of scrabbling around trying to work out how they are going to deal with appeals, because the government announced it right at the last minute. The other problem is, head teachers are just amazed at this decision, because they know that mock exams aren't a standardized exam that every school takes at a certain time, and aren't marked in the same way like a proper exam. They are literally mock exams. So some of them are papers cobbled together from all different sources by teachers. Some of them are past papers. Some of them sit them in November when they haven't had half the course taught to them, and some pupils even sat them in lockdown while they're at home. And also the teachers say that when they were working out the students' grades that they submitted to the exam boards, they took into account their mock results anyway, so they were already there. And it's very rare that someone does better on their mock than in the final exam or the final prediction.
And where does this leave the universities, Anna? Because they've got to decide who's getting the places, and no one seems to know what results they've actually got.
Yes. Well, the first initial data from UCAS today shows that actually record numbers of students have been accepted on courses, and record numbers of students from disadvantaged backgrounds have got places. The universities have been asked to be lenient, and it looks like they have been. And also they've been asked to be lenient on students who are going to go through the appeals process, because of course you're not going to know whether your appeal has been successful for at least a week or so. The criteria for appealing hasn't been published, so a student might think, what's the point of appealing? I need to get my university course sort of locked down. But universities have been asked to sort of wait for them, and I think that's what they're going to do. So that's looking optimistic, I think.